The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. I was backstage stuffing my face with my breakfast before the show. Hard-boiled eggs, my favorite thing ever. if you've ever watched Alphas, that's like the newly discovered secret from Christy that I'm obsessed with hard-boiled eggs. So, how you doing?
Well, hockey is stupid.
I know. Oh man, I was rooting for the Avs too, and
I know what happened. Just choked, I guess. When the buzzer. Yeah, I mean, it makes no. And I was at the final game of the last season where they came back in the 4 minutes and won the series, and it was so exciting. It felt like we were on top of the world, and then just swept when the buzzer hit last night. Caleb said, well, they didn't deserve to win any of those games. And he's right. Like, what happened to the Colorado Avalanche?
So I watched the first game where it was a good game. The first game was pretty good. Knights won it. I'm like, okay, they got their one on the road. That's fine. The Avs will be fine. Whatever. And then game 2, they were up like 3-0, I think, at one point. And I was like, okay, I think it was like on Saturday or Friday night.
Avs are back now, right?
Yeah, I was like, it's Friday night. I'm going to go spend time with my wife. We'll watch a movie or something. I wake up the next morning and I check in, the Knights won. Yep. I'm like, what the hell? So game 3, I'm like, all right, something's got to give here. Avs are up 3-0. They lose 4 or 5-3. I think there's an empty netter at the end, 5-3. And then last night I was watching 2-0 with like 2 minutes left. They get a 6-man empty net. They get a goal against the Knights and just looked like crap, man. Just what the hell happened to them?
Yeah, I mean, they had the Makar injury and, top line, and it
got hurt for a while.
It's going to have an impact, but you wouldn't think it would make the entire team unravel. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's the only thing I can think of that would have, shook the psychological, harmony of the team. And I don't get it. I don't know what happened. Nobody expected this. And it's very stupid.
Well, I would like to point out that the Vegas Golden Knights had one less win than the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and the Panthers didn't even make the playoffs, and the Golden Knights are going to the Stanley Cup, and I think that that's crap. I'm very bitter about that.
Everything is discombobulated. John texted Caleb and I, said, what the hell is this? The Wild would have at least won one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my Florida Panthers, man, they had more wins than the Vegas Knights, but because hockey's really gay and how they determine points and everything else, the Knights had more points. I mean, they're in the West too, so the West is kind of shitty, except for the Avalanche.
Yeah, well, it's what I get for talking shit to John after we won against him.
Oh, you know what the worst part is on Y-Chromes when we first unpacked the playoffs, Caleb was like, "Oh, the Knights don't even belong in the playoffs."
Oh, you got to play that the next time he's on.
I totally am. They don't even belong in the playoffs. I don't even think they'll get out of the first round. And I was like, really? They're going to lose to a 3 seed in the first round? He's like, yeah, they're trash. And then they sweep the Avs to go to the Stanley Cup.
Everything is discombobulated.
Poor Caleb. I'm glad we didn't go to Vegas now because we were going to go to the game on Sunday, and that would have been miserable.
Yeah. Well, maybe if we were there, they would have won, though.
Maybe we could have cheered harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Harder,
I truly believe that makes a difference. With that game that I was at, they were down 3-0 when we got there, and didn't score again after I put my sweater on. So.
All right, guys, well, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so yet. Before we get rolling with today's show, we're going to talk about some of our sponsors, and let's talk about our friends over at Frequency Apps. Everything must go at Frequency Apps. This is your chance to stock up before inventory is gone. Frequency Apps has created easy-to-apply wellness patches designed for everyday support with no messy creams, complicated routines, or harsh ingredients. Simply apply a patch and enjoy the around-the-clock convenience wherever life may take you. Choose from over 50 patch options for support with weight management, stress, discomfort, sleep, focus, hormone balance, immune support, and much more. Whether you're trying Frequency Apps for the first time or grabbing your favorites before they're gone, now is the time to save. During this liquidation event, Frequency Apps is giving our audience a 15-day supply completely free. That's right. You get a full 45 days of relief for the price of just 30. Don't wait. Shop the liquidation sale now and grab your favorites before they disappear. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/patches today. No coupon code required or coupon code required. Simple, safe, and natural. Start your journey to better health now. This offer excludes ACG, GLP-1, and Plastigon patches. And I used the Frequency Apps when I had my excruciating back pain years ago, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
If you're like me and you don't generally get patches because of the irritation of the adhesive, which is a problem, for a lot of people, the Frequency Apps patches don't have that. I can't use other patch products because I end up with, like a rash. It's very, very irritating to the skin. Did not have any of that with Frequency Apps.
Yep. Goes through the shower and everything. Good stuff. Good stuff. Also, guys, welcome to Benson Honey Farms, where every jar is pure gold. Benson Honey is excited to be back on Badlands Media with their honey harvest straight from their Nebraska farm. While they've been busy working to improve their state's politics from the ground up, they never forgot the importance of sharing the best honey around. Did you know that honey is not just a sweet treat? It's a natural medicine perfect for alleviating allergies, soothing upset stomachs, or as a delicious natural sweetener for baking. Benson honey is never heated, ensuring you receive it in its pure, raw form of natural goodness. At Benson Honey Farms, quality and purity is top priority, and they're committed to providing the finest honey from hive to home. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/honey and use promo code Badlands to get 20% off your purchase. Benson Honey Farms, savor the authentic taste of Nebraska and support this America First business. You can also follow on at Benson Honey Farms and on TikTok at Mo Benson Honey, please. That's MOE Benson Honey, please. And catch up with Mo on the first episode of America First Stories right here on Badlands Media. All right. Completely cut Ash out of the ad read. You're the only other host that reads ads, and I completely cut you out right there, and I just realized.
Up and everything, too. I feel a little slighted, to be honest.
I am such an ass. Oh,
no
man.
argument from me, Brian.
All right. Well, well, I for those that didn't see last week, I apologized on book club. I don't ever do that, but I like interrupted Ash like really bad last week, and I felt really bad about it.
You were fighting with New K's.
I was fighting with New K's because New K's is wrong. I do have some good news, ladies and gentlemen. We had primary elections last night. Not that we're really excited about that. I am excited about this, though, because we never have to hear, I rise on behalf of the great state of Texas.
Cane, though. I'm going to miss the cane.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat.
Won't you tell me to sit
Provided that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the sergeant at arms to restore order.
Get him out of here.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Oh, man.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House.
Yeah, sure they are. As they're singing, nah, 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 nah.
As they're lying from the floor with qualified immunity.
And then there was this one was also a classic. Black people aren't apes.
Wasn't there like a crop on that?
I forgot what the crop was. What was the crop?
Maybe it was something covering the NT and it was black people are apes or something. There was something like some embarrassing crop on that when he had that sign. I remember.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but it's aren't.
That's not even like the best news from Texas last night.
What is the best news?
Ken Paxton sent John Cornyn into obscurity.
Yeah.
25-ish points.
8, 15, 25. 25. Yeah, you're right. 25. Wow. Shush.
Oh, rent apes. That's what it was, Sammy. Sammy the squirrel. Thank you. Yeah, it was, rent apes.
That's
Black
right.
People rent apes.
he angled the sign just enough so you couldn't.
Yeah, you know, like Seth Keshel had a great post about this. Let me see if I can find it really quick.
Well, while you're looking for that real quick, Christian Menifee is the guy that defeated Al Green in the 18th congressional district. This is one of the ungerrymandered districts. So you had to take two Democrats and run them against each other, both incumbents, I think, right? I think they're both they're both incumbents, and they had to run them together because they consolidated their district into one because we're ungerrymandering the maps that have been disgustingly gerrymandered as a whole. Go ahead. What you got?
Paxton won't become AG. Paxton won't be reelected. Paxton won't survive primary by the Bush dynasty. Paxton won't be reelected again. Paxton won't survive impeachment. Paxton won't run for Senate. Paxton won't beat Cornyn. Paxton won't get Trump's endorsement. Paxton won't beat Cornyn by more than 5. Paxton won't beat Cornyn by more than 25. You are here. Paxton won't beat Tallarico. Paxton won't beat Tallarico by 10. The Senate won't seat Paxton.
This is awesome. This is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet Ken Paxton, have lunch with him as part of an event that I was at in 2022. And I sat across from him and had a really good conversation about, so it was shortly after they had removed his ability to investigate election integrity. And the event that I was at was about election integrity. So we had a really interesting conversation about that and what they were trying to do. I find him to be a very authentic player in this thing. And I'm excited for him. Congratulations to Ken Paxton.
I got to interview him on my channel a little bit before Badlands. And it was, you know, when he was going through the thing in Texas where they basically they usurped his authority as the attorney general to investigate election fraud and election crimes. Yeah, and I was interviewing about that, and I went. Oh, sorry, I was reiterating, and I went off on the Texas versus Pennsylvania lawsuit, and I got to talk about. Like I asked him before, I was like, "Hey, can we talk about this?" He's like, "I'd love to."
Yeah.
And so we got into the Texas v. Pennsylvania suit, which was the big 2020 lawsuit that the Supreme Court kicked the can down the road and said, "We're not going to hear this case." And
do you think that the rhetoric that we're getting, talking points out of the mainstream legacy media, is that the Republicans are going to get crushed in the midterms? My gut, and it's not, I don't, elections are fake, right? So it's not based on like detailed analysis of the polling and all of the things, because I think that's all bullshit. But my gut is that is just talking points. I think that the people in 2024 voted for this agenda, and the hysterics around it, if you think back to 2025 and the immigration push and all of the hysteria around immigration, I think that the immigration agenda is incredibly popular among the people, and the mainstream media is not reflective of the actual will of the people. That's not breaking news, right? We all know that. I think it's just talking points, but I don't know, right? It is a little bit nerving. You and I talked yesterday off air about our governor candidate here, Scott Bottoms, who is, straight up about elections being fake. Every time I have the chance to talk to him to ask him a question, I bring up the fact that elections are fake, and he's like, "I know, Ash, I know," but his position is that, listen, there's federal investigations into the malfeasance around the elections, into the voter rolls, into what happened in 2020 and in 2022 and in 2024. There are the people who have commanded that system have more eyes on them, have more spotlight on them than ever before. And this is going to be the safest election we've had in a long time, or the most, unrigged election we've had in a long time, because if it's not, they will be caught. Right. And that's kind of his position on it. I don't know how much I agree with that. I think that there's some truth to it. And certainly here in Colorado, there are a number of investigations, and with things like Tina Peters, Jared Polis's, kind of 180-degree turn on Tina Peters, and doing this now before the primary, before the general, like before the midterms, essentially, is notable. And Jared Polis has said, because he got hammered in the press, and it's very bipartisan, right? It is, the establishment is flipped out that he's going to let Tina Peters out of prison coming up in 5 days. Yes. And that, like, I reached out to him because I wanted to ask him to come on the show, and he actually responded. And when I reached out to him, I said, in a hilarious turn of events, I may be your most friendly interview on this topic. And he wrote back and he said, "Well, that's very kind. The press has been quite hostile," pointed to one favorable piece of news coverage that he'd gotten, and then asked me about the show. So I told him a little bit about what we do, both in radio and in Badlands, and he hasn't responded yet. But maybe we'll get Jared Polis on Why We Vote. Brian, what do you think of that?
Dude, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, but he has said publicly that he believes his decision to commute the sentence of Tina Peters will be remembered fondly by history. And I do think that there is something a brewing. And if you remember, after the 2024 election, the U.S. Attorney's Office here put a note in a pleading in her case that said that they were looking into the weaponization of government against Tina Peters, as I've said ad nauseum on all of the shows, because all of the shows are Why We Vote now. That I think that the real story of Tina Peters, her as a material witness, her real the personal firsthand knowledge that she can testify to is the story of weaponization of government, and weaponization of government for an agenda in opposition to the will of the people is treason. And so I'm very optimistic. Someone in the chat asked, does she actually get out in 5 days, or does the parole board meet in 5 days? It's my understanding that the parole board has already met. I don't know what they determined. It's all very tightly guarded. They're concerned about her safety. But she is supposed to be out. The commutation order says she's granted parole, says she's eligible for parole on June 1st and granted parole on June 1st. So she should be out. Now, it's my understanding she could be out like a day before or day after, depending on what they determine for from a safety standpoint. But we're all waiting to see the answer to that.
Was it Bottoms that suggested the Polis was, kind of cooperating?
Yes.
With all of this? And, that is interesting when he says, fondly, has he been briefed on things beyond just, kind of the surface level stuff that, the Phil Weisers of Colorado would want him to know about Tina Peters? Has his investigation into this or his knowledge of this expanded beyond just the state politics in Colorado and gotten, perspectives from outside agencies, maybe in the federal government or, in Tina Peters' camp specifically? That is really interesting. You called all of this, by the way, that he's going to try and run more as a libertarian moderate.
He always does. Yeah. I mean, it's reading the tea leaves and, the history of Jared Polis. He is always libertarian when he's running for office. He tacks back to the middle. And I had said in December, he's going to disappoint his party a lot this year. And I think we're seeing that.
Well, even going back, the one of the few times I ever reported on Polis outside of, the Tina Peters thing and Colorado elections and everything was that kid with the backpack. Remember the Gadsden flag on his backpack, and he got suspended, and Polis came out and was like, what the hell are you doing? That's his First Amendment right to have that. And everybody was harping on that kid. This kid's that's a racist flag, and it's an oppressive flag, and he shouldn't be allowed to have it. It's a terrorist symbol and all this other stuff. And Polis is like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And, I was like, and this was like 3 years ago. And so,
that was down in Colorado Springs. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So,
yeah, but he does. And even at the beginning of the pandemic, like I was praising him because he wasn't taking the authoritarian reins the way the other governors were. Now he did a bunch of stuff, and eventually he did, seize that executive power, and then he kept renewing it like everybody else did. But in the very beginning, he seemed to be trying to, walk a more libertarian line on pandemic response for the first few months. And I've always kind of called him straight on that. My biggest issues at that point with Jared Polis were his treatment of oil and gas and the energy industries here, because he really demonized the energy industries. But then, he just got super I mean, he was probably always super radical, but he got real radical in the pandemic response, in the use of executive authority. He's radical on the approach to how we treat children in the state. And, then there's the wolves. The wolves in Colorado, where I don't know if anybody has seen the movie Alpha and Omega. It's a children's movie with wolves, where these two wolves are like kind of falling in love, but they're not allowed to fall in love. And then they both get shot with tranquilizer darts and moved to somewhere else. And the whole movie, I'm not spoiling it. This is like the beginning. The whole movie is them trying to get back home. And that's when they started relocating wolves here. Like, it's all I can think about, because my boys loved that movie when they were kids, and so I've seen it like 1,000 times. And that's what we did here. We took a bunch of wolves from their homes and relocated them here, and all of the wolves are dying. Like half of them are dead.
But that's a whole different topic, but I thought they were trying to eradicate the wolf population in Colorado.
No, they're trying to rebuild it.
Oh, I thought they were.
Yeah. So they're taking wolves from the Pacific Northwest and up into Canada, and they're moving them here. And it isn't their natural environment. And if you've ever seen like those maps of wolf packs and how territorial they are, and how like there's this sense that they know. So some of the wolves have attacked ranchers, the cattle and whatnot, and have been shot. It's illegal to shoot the wolves here, so that's been a whole thing. Some of the wolves are killed by other predators, mountain lions, whatnot. Some of the wolves don't recognize that there's a state line from Colorado to Wyoming, and so they cross into Wyoming and get shot where it's legal to shoot them. So the whole thing has been a disaster, and they keep doubling down. Like they're like, we're also going to bring back wolverines. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Okay.
Stop killing the wolves.
All right, well, let's bring it back to somehow we go from Ken Paxton's election victory to wolves in Colorado. And this was Ken Paxton. Just a quick moment, by the way.
The key thread there is retardation.
Ken Paxton definitely has to have a little more charisma. I'm not going to lie. This was kind of a boring speech, but here's a segment where he's talking about the SAVE Act.
You see, I'm not just running against the Democrats. I'm running to deliver for you, just as I have as Attorney General. I'm running to lower your cost of living because you deserve to be able to buy a home, afford groceries, and have a high quality of health care without being forced to stay up at night worrying about how you're going to pay your monthly premium or pay off your debt. In the Senate, I'll support President Trump's America First agenda and finally secure our nation's elections by passing the Save America Act.
Yeah, he's kind of got to step it up a notch, man. Like somebody light a fire under his ass so he gets a little enthusiasm. You just won against John Cornyn, dude, like the old guard swamp Republican, one of the highest tenured senators in the Republican Party. You just whooped his ass, and you're just like monotonous. We're gonna get this.
That's how he is, though.
I know it is. I know it is. I know it is, but like we want to see some rah, man. Like get. But here's the thing, man. Like Ken Paxton, first and foremost, he won't be able to do anything about the Save America Act until after the 2026 midterms. But one senator is not going to be enough. Now, hopefully we'll see more of this type of, ousting here, in the midterms, but it's still, maybe this is what lights the fire under John Thune's ass to like, now you got to, but again, Cornyn's still there until January of 2027. And so Cornyn is going to probably be even more staunchly against the Trump agenda. Instead of doing it behind closed doors, now he's going to do it outwardly. So,
yeah. And didn't Thune pour a bunch of money into Cornyn's race? I think I read that somewhere. Also, the world's going to end if we don't pass the Save America Act because we need to stop men and women's sports.
Yeah, it's a good point. President Trump truthed this out last night. Congrats to Ken Paxton on a tremendous win and to John Cornyn for having run a strong and powerful race, but more importantly, having had a truly great career. John will remain my friend for a long time to come as we both watch Ken become a fantastic common sense senator, one who is respected by all. His opponent, Alfred E. Newman, may be the worst Texas candidate I've ever seen. A strong open borders advocate. He is weak on crime, believes there are 6 genders, is insulting to Jesus Christ, will never support the military, and was a big mask wearer until recently, and is a vegan who dislikes meat. Not exactly a good way to be if you're wanting to win an election in Texas. Jasmine Crockett, a very low IQ individual who is no relation to the legendary frontiersman Davy Crockett, would have been a far better choice for the Democrats. I will do some nice, big, beautiful rallies for Ken. Texas will be fun. God bless America, President DJT.
Love it.
Let's go.
Love to see it. We're going to get Trump rallies this summer, guys. Let's go.
And just the news putting out Paxton win sends message to Thune. It's Trump's Senate now. Paxton's triumph marked the toppling of one of the most members of the Republican conference, a signal that MAGA voters are eager for change in the workings of the upper chamber. And then it goes on to basically hash out everything that we've been talking about since Thune has refused to do the Save America Act, but is gleefully anxious to pass Section 702 of FISA. And yeah, right. Like we really want to make sure that we could spy on Americans, but give them the potential of cleaning up at least one aspect of their elections. No.
Yeah. We have to spy on you for your safety. It's for your safety. It's for national. You have to give us all your liberties. You have no right to privacy because, there's a big scary world out there. So you have to give the government the ability to violate all of your civil liberties. That's how that works.
Yeah. And also you're not smart enough to elect your own officials. So we need to make sure that you don't have free and fair elections so we can continue on this propaganda campaign.
It really is you and I are broken records.
Yes, we
on
are.
This, but it really does impact every other issue. It is the foundation of all of this, of the entire dystopia that America exists, our American government exists in theory based upon the consent of the governed. We are giving our consent to be governed, except we're not, because we're not allowed to ask questions about it. If you do, you are considered a threat to democracy, demonized and punished by the state. And it's this they're compelling public trust. They're compelling our consent, and consent cannot be compelled. That's, it's kind of one of the features of consent is that it's voluntary and given willingly. And it is not when it comes to elections. I think that in our election system, voter intent is real. I think that voter intent is a real aspect of it. And I heard you and Alpha arguing about this last week. And top of the show, if folks missed it, sit rep last week, fake versus false. No, what was it? Yeah. Fake
fraudulent versus
fake
fake.
Versus fake versus fraudulent. I texted John during that. I'm like, okay, I need to be on a panel at GART with Alpha and not as the moderator this time. Although I didn't do a great job moderating because I just started eating in the middle of it. I can't, I am who I am, Brian. But that's the thing, is that the system itself is built to defraud. It is centralized and complex on purpose, and centralization creates complexity. Complexity breeds and hides corruption, and we aren't allowed to ask about it. That is one of the most egregious parts about this, is that transparency is considered a threat to democracy. And because of that, I don't believe in elections. Like, I am legitimately an election denier. I don't think they are elections. Because the underlying system is built to defraud, it is not an election that is happening, right? It is something else. And that fake versus fraudulent, I think those are synonyms. And I know Alpha split that hair. Spetzel backs him up on it, and loves to defend that position. But in my opinion, we do not have elections. We have the theater, the pageantry of democracy, as Mark Elias calls it.
Elias.
Yep. And we have to talk about that, and we have to have accountability for that. We cannot have real elections until we are honest about how fake they are.
I'm with you. I on the Cornyn Paxton battle, and I want to just I thought this was an epic win for Paxton, and the reason for that is because, and so right now Trump, I think, is like 117-0 in his endorsements thus far. He's flawless. He hasn't lost an endorsement yet.
101 out of 101, isn't it?
I thought I saw 117 out of 117.
Well, that would be nice.
I didn't have the story up, but you can fact check me on that.
Okay, well, I love to.
Either way, he's undefeated. It's in the triple digits, and he's undefeated. But the contrast between what Paxton was able to do, and a lot of people go back to Massey right away, right? The Massey Galrain race. The contrast in what they were able to do is crazy. So just looking at the numbers here, Cornyn's campaign, $57 million in media buys compared to $4.5 million for Ken Paxton. 57 million versus 4.5 million. That is a 13-to-1 ratio right there. And overall on the campaign, it was 90 million versus 10.5 million. I mean, those types of numbers to have and to unseat somebody like Cornyn. And you do have to ask yourself, and I know this is not going to be a popular opinion with either of us, but if elections are fake, how did Cornyn not win this? With that much money being spent, you have the narrative shielding that we just spent enough to do this. And with the reports that came out about Ken Paxton, trying to smear him as much as possible right beforehand, you got to wonder, is there something that happened in this election that they weren't able to do something with it? I'm just looking surface level. The money, the spending for Cornyn does not justify a 25-point landslide for Ken Paxton. The sentiment does. The voter intent, as Ash said, I believe that Texas thoroughly wanted Ken Paxton over John Cornyn. We're all sick of the old guard. We've got to get rid of the old guard. And the old guard came out in full force to support Cornyn and still lost.
Yeah, that is the choice, I think, this year. So to the point about, how if elections are fake, how did Cornyn win? I don't know. I think that it's a proof point for what we talked about earlier with Scott Bottoms, that maybe President Trump came out on truth and said these elections will be free and fair. Maybe there is something to that. I still believe I won't believe that that's the case until there is accountability, and I don't think accountability is winning on an election system that is suspect at best and not dealt, and that issue isn't dealt with. So that's one, but it is a proof point for the fact that maybe the elections will be more real. And then I can hear, the fraud deniers in my head. Oh, you think elections are real if you win, and you think they're fake if you lose. No, I think they're fake. I think elections are fake all around until we have accountability for them. And they tell us. Brian and I have done a show for 3 years. Tuesdays, then on Fridays. Now it's back to Tuesdays. We've done a show for 3 years where we go through across the country. We go through the election results. We go through the election systems issues, the allegations of fraud, where the races have been overturned, where there are the legislation, the lawsuits. We cover it all. We've covered every trial on election related matters. And there is way too much evidence that we don't actually have elections for us to just move on and say, okay, well, Trump is in office and Republicans are doing great now, so we can trust elections again. I don't believe that. And I won't take that position until we have transparency and accountability for what has happened with our elections. That being said, there's a midterm election coming up, and the theater of elections is something that still guides, power in our society. So it's encouraging. I like the idea. And you said this like 2 years ago and I think you tacked away from this position at one point. I don't know if you're back to it, but right after the 2024 election, I don't remember what show, I'm assuming it was Why We Vote, you had said that we were going to have another fake election in 2026 and that it was going to be a sting. Or I'm paraphrasing the way I remember your position, but that I can get on board with that. And I think that that's kind of in line with what Scott Bottoms was saying. And just, Scott Bottoms, I was at his barbecue on Memorial Day, fundraiser for him, barbecue, and the Vance, Usha Vance's team was there. And, he claims that he's working with JD Vance's fraud team. He's been put in charge of fraud and, has connections to, federal law enforcement. He's very confident, and he's an election denier, but he's very confident that he's going to have a fair election. I'm intrigued by that. I don't think elections are real until we have accountability for how fake they've been.
So the sting theory, first it required President Trump to be back in office because he needed to have the full force of the federal government and the law enforcement agencies in order to do that. I also think you have to create the desperation. You have to put the opposing side here, in this case the Democrats, the ones that we believe orchestrated the fraud, and it's not just Democrats. I do believe there are Republicans.
Democrats and Republicans aren't real, Brian.
Well, I understand that, but you get what I'm saying. They're going to be backing the opposition party in this case. We can call them the opposition party. I hate podcasts that sit there and, Republicans versus Democrats. I think that's so retarded. But in this case, we have to label them as something. And so the opposition party in the 2026 election is going to be so desperate to, unseat Trump's will and be able to thwart him in the Congress openly, as opposed to covertly, the way we've been seeing in the Senate. And we've been seeing all sorts of whispers about this in the last week or so about, Ted Cruz coming out and saying, hey, all these senators are going against Trump. And then The Hill is putting out an article yesterday about the civil war taking place in the Senate against President Trump. And then you see Paxton unseat John Cornyn. And it is happening. Donald Trump is dismantling the entire system as a whole, and the desperation is going to set in the 2026 election. And hopefully I'm right. I'm just speculating on this, that I think
you could be. Yeah.
There is something that's going to be found, because they're going to be so desperate that they are going to get complacent. They're not complacent, but they're going to get lazy, and they're going to get sloppy. And they did in 2020. It's just nobody was there to to enforce it. Nobody was there to prosecute it. And they had the systems in place. They were very sloppy in 2020. That's how we discovered how fake our elections actually are.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point that I was starting out to make before, but got lost in my weave. I think it's a choice of worldview in this election. And so Cornyn versus Paxton is the Trumpian disruptor versus the establishment. Yep. Right here in Colorado, we have Kirkmeyer versus Bottoms, and then there's this caricature Victor Marx who, I don't actually think is running for governor. I think he's pumping the bag. But the choice, they had a debate last night, and it was a very clear distinction that the establishment choice appreciates the system, thinks the system works, denies that the system is corrupt. And I don't mean the election system. I mean the system, right? The set of institutions that govern in society, where we have seen across the country, there is rampant waste, fraud, and abuse. Here in Colorado, it's not happening. It's just mismanagement. It's, the system is great. Elect me, the Republican, and I will guide the system. I will better manage the system, but the system itself is sound. That's choice one. Do you think that the system we have, do you think that the institutions that have brought us to this point are generally sound? They've just been mismanaged. Versus the second choice of, we need to transform the system. We need to shut down some of these institutions. We need to pull the waste, fraud, abuse, corruption out of them. We need to hold people accountable, and we need to build a system that will take us into a golden age. That's the second choice. And it's it's becoming, as this campaign goes on, a more distinct choice. Certainly their positions diverge on pretty much every issue, because there is the assumption that the system is great. It just, the system, not the management of it, not the leadership of it right now, but the system itself is sound, and we just need to better manage it, versus the system is the problem and we need to blow it up. Right. Metaphorically in Minecraft, rhetorically, whatever. But that's the choice. And I think we're seeing that choice across the country. And in the past, and I haven't gone through all of the endorsements, so I can't say whether this, hypothesis holds up yet. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me.
The system, if we blow it up,
metaphorically, of course, metaphorically, we had boar violence here at Badlands. But this, the transformation into a golden age, these institutions have been keeping the people subjugated. Mm-hmm. The institutions of taxation, the institutions of education, the legislatures themselves, these are, in my opinion, corrupted systems, corrupted systems that are beholden to something other than the will of the people. And we have generations of centralizing power and the public-private partnerships that allow the government, we talked about this last night a little bit, that allow the government to do things that the government cannot do in the United States of America. But when they partner with private players, those private players can do those things, and the government and there's no oversight of those private players, and the lobbyists run in that space of the private players. The lobbyists are writing the legislation. How do we end up with the reality of overruled, the human toll of too much law, where you have this unaccountable administrative state that has been delegated the authorities of Congress to essentially make law, right? They're writing the regulations, and the standard under Chevron was, we'll defer to the experts and let them kind of figure out what the legal landscape needs to be, the regulatory landscape. Where's the hammer in our society at the most local level wielded over the people? That this is what it was. It's where are the incentives and what's driving the decision making? Governance is about decision rights, always. And all of this other emotional blackmail that politicians use when they're campaigning is a distraction from the fact that governance is about decision rights. So what are the decision rights? In the case of Chevron, the decision rights were legitimately granted to Congress in the Constitution Congress illegitimately delegated them to these administrative players, and by extension, the expert class, which gives you the lobbyists and the NGOs and this whole other unaccountable force in our society. That's a big part of the deep state. It's a big part of the invisible enemy, and that's what we're fighting. And I think we're seeing it fight back. And the choice in this election, elections are fake, but the choice of the theater that we're going through right now is, do you really want to transform and head into a golden age where what truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people? Are the people empowered with the decision rights in their lives, or are the people too stupid and we still need the expert class to guide and govern, and we just need to give them all our decision rights, and we need to, be beholden to what they tell us to do? That's the choice. And I think that choice is pretty clear in all of these elections. The last thing I'll say is that this is the part that I haven't fully vetted all of the choices, but is President Trump in the prior elections, I would say, President Trump has endorsed a lot of people that were like, what? Right? Like who and what are we doing? Those are establishment picks. Those are people that love the system. It seems like his choices are much more in line with the second option in this election. And that I find interesting.
We all know where I sit on this. We had this discussion many times. I think they're creating a whole secondary system that can be implemented relatively quickly when necessary, reintroduced into the system. I just shared in our group chat, Thomas Massey is down in Costa Rica hanging out with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and TMZ is doing an article about it. And it's like at the very end of the article, it's a short article. At the very end of the article, it says, many consider Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene to be 2028 presidential hopefuls, or to put in a bid for the 2028 presidential election. And assuming Trump doesn't somehow get the third term, which I think he very well could if he proves the 2020 election was fraudulent in a court and it's upheld, I think he is entitled to that 2028. But if he's not, that is the bridge between MAGA where it is right now, the split in MAGA, the Republican Party, and even some of the independents that lean Democrat that are like, oh, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually makes some pretty good points. Thomas Massey actually makes some pretty good points. Now that they've been unshielded from the MAGA, right? They've had the MAGA cover taken off of them. People are looking at them automatically like, hey, they're anti-MAGA now. Let me look at them. And I just think there's a whole kind of network that's being developed behind the scenes here. And when the timing is right, you will see all of these factions realign. That's just my take.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I think it kind of aligns to the Trump final boss theory of, at a high level, we set out with the strategy statement in 2017 to give power back to the people. Instead of taking that power, the people have largely just transferred their allegiance from government broadly to President Trump. And we need to move off of that to where the people actually take their power. I don't love the anointing of future contenders, right? Oh, it's going to be JD Vance. Oh, it's going to be Thomas Massey. Oh, it's going to be, I think that there is room for new players, particularly ones with actual executive governance experience, people that know. That's why a big part of why President Trump, I think, has been so successful at reigniting the American spirit, is that he approaches governance from a place of empowerment, and he says the things that nobody's willing to say, and he does the things that everybody says he can't do. And that's what we need as we are transforming and hopefully ostensibly into a golden age. We need people that think outside the box. I think those guys both think inside the box, and I don't know that their executive experience is aligned. Also, Thomas Massey is the original DeSantis simp, which just that's the one thing. And you and I went through his legislative record on one of the shows. I don't remember which one. And his agenda, his focus, Massey's focus has been very much in line with the Trump agenda, and no problems with that. But going back to the DeSantis op.
That was the original fracturing of MAGA. right there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Republican Party, I should say. That was what fractured the Republican Party, because you had to take a hard line on that one. If DeSantis had waited until 2028 and, you know, left the governor's office in 2026 and ran as a private citizen, you know, for 2 years, MAGA would have loved him. And the Republican Party would have loved him. But instead, he ran in 2026 and fractured everything. And
Which
that
is
was
great.
that was the original fracturing. And to your point about Trump and the you know, he doesn't anoint, you know, the next coming. He said just a couple weeks ago, yeah, I think JD Vance would be great. Marco Rubio, great. Totally not an endorsement. In no way, shape, or form is this an endorsement of them.
Yeah.
Could be alluding to his 2028 run. Could be alluding to a dark horse entering the mix here. But yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll say, and I think that this goes to your point, I think what you just said is a proof point to this, is that the parties are the problem, right? We've talked about this for 3 years. We don't have two differing sets of ideas of how to run the nation, of what kind of America we want to be. We have the theater of that, while the people in power in both parties are very much aligned. And no matter who gets elected, which party gets elected, globalism expands. Right, the powers of the state expand, and our rights get trampled on, regardless of which party is in power. And one thing that, with that fracture that we're talking about, and you go back to the DeSantis thing, I think it's predated. I think that 2016 broke the Republican Party, and we're you know, kind of still navigating the fracture of that. And I had coffee with a woman here a month and a half ago at this point, and she's on the other side, right? Like, she's establishment, like establishment leaning, kind of would have supported DeSantis, very put off by Trump and his fault, you know, his decorum isn't the right kind of decorum and all of that kind of stuff. But where she and I found, and we had a great debate over coffee, but where we found common ground is that it seems like we are becoming post-partisan, and that's a very encouraging thing. Now, what comes next, I believe, is up to us. But my nerves on that, my anxiety on that, is that people are still looking for an answer from President Trump, and people need to start looking for the answers within themselves and within their community. And what kind of community do you want to build? What kind of America do you want to be? And that's the choice, I think, this midterms.
The last thing I'll say on this, and Ghost and I talked about this kind of yesterday a little bit, and I think Ghost would agree. Trump right now is in his dark kind of stage of the story, right? He's the villain in so many people's eyes right now. I just posted, I just put the heel, exactly. That's what Ghost calls it, the Hulkster heel, or you know, whatever it is. And in the whole, if you watch WWF or WWE, what, you know, back in the day, WWF. All the wrestlers go through that. They all go through, like Stone Cold, right? The Rock, you know, these were the legends. And all at some point they had this kind of dark era where they were the bad guy. They were the villain and everything. And then they emerge at the end of it as the hero once again. And I think that time is coming for President Trump. But in the meantime, right now, he is definitely playing the villainous role. Everybody, oh, he's bought by Israel. He started a new war. You know, my gas prices are through the roof and all of that. And just wait, guys. Just wait. You're going to see it all come around. So, all right, we got to move on. Before we do that, I do want to hit another sponsor here. And welcome to the narrative, by the way. We'll change this from Badlands Daily to the narrative. All right, parents, real talk for a second. America is about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on America's 250th birthday. Started on Monday, the official Project 250 celebration. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-government that the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters. It's not just fireworks and hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th. And honestly, it is a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were and what they risked, and why the ideas that they fought for still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. If you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you'll want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. You just need to pay $2 for shipping and handling. Just head to freeusabirthday.com. Again, that's freeusabirthday.com and get the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. All right. So you had asked, Ash, you kind of said, you felt like this was building up for a red wave, more so than a blue wave. And, again, red versus blue. I hate the comparisons there, but opposition versus putting more ammunition in President Trump's, back pocket, so to speak. This was a PBS.
Hang on just a second, because I just want to clarify on that point. I think the same thing is happening on the Democrat side. I think we see a battle happening, at least, I see it here close up. I think it's happening in other places, New York with Mamdani and that whole thing. We're seeing a battle of ideas on the left that hasn't happened in a very long time. The primaries on the left are competitive this year. They haven't been forever, right? We've seen crossover voters largely impact Republicans because the Democrats have been in lockstep, and that dynamic is being challenged this year in a way that it hasn't been in the past, or at least in recent memory.
The Al Green Menifee is a prime example of that. I mean, Menifee is a young guy. He's in his 30s. Al Green is 78. It's the old guard being changed out by the new guard. Yeah, I can get behind that.
Establishment versus the challengers, the what the people want. And the DSA wants stupid shit, but they are not the establishment. Right. They might be the establishment brown shirts, which the Tina Peters thing is kind of like, it moved my thinking on that a little bit, because I thought that the DSA would have been supportive of Tina Peters' commutation, because they're prison reform people and criminal justice reform people and don't let the state have that much power in the justice system people, but they just abandoned that and they're totally in lockstep with the establishment on that issue. So, I'm less bullish on that idea than I was before, but I still think there's something to it.
So the Democrats put out a 2024 audit assessment, whatever you want to call it, last week. It was an absolute joke. It was embarrassingly awful. And PBS had a segment. I got two clips I want to play from this, but here's the first clip. And the first thing this woman says here, I think, is the most important thing she's going to say. But then she goes on to talk about all the ways that the DNC can fix elections, which is kind of interesting as well.
An autopsy or a look back on what went wrong is not going to be the reason Democrats win or don't win in 26 or 28. But I think what it highlighted is the growing frustration among party regulars, activists about the head of the DNC. DNC has been having so much trouble raising money. They have been outraised by multiples of, I can't even tell you how many, by the RNC. And here's the thing, the throw weight, the financial.
Now, let me just pause there for a second, because, me and Ash know exactly why the DNC isn't raising the money like they used to be able to raise.
Because their dark money apparatus was turned off.
Yes, but here's the thing, Ash, is that is completely counterintuitive to the narrative that we're being fed on the television. We see the No Kings protest, right? They're like, look, there's 12 million people that went out to protest on this No Kings Day across the country. All of these protests, 12 million people. This is the biggest movement ever, and blah, blah, blah. And then you have a DNC strategist up here like, guys, we're getting our asses pummeled in financing. So you're just saying the 12 million people are anxious enough to go out there and hold their signs and you rage against President Trump, and they're so pissed off at President Trump, and he's the worst president ever, and he's Hitler, and he's a fascist, and he's a dictator, but they're not willing to throw $5 at the DNC in order to defeat him. That doesn't sound organic to me, but let's keep going.
Throw weight of the party is not what it used to be. Back when I started doing this, they were everything. Now you have super PACs and billionaires that can fill that void. What the DNC and the RNC can do, though, that makes them very important, they set up the rules for how you get nominated to be your party's person to take the presidency. They set the dates for when we have primaries and which states go first. And they have the rules about the delegates. If voters within the Democratic sphere and the activists in that Democratic sphere don't trust the DNC to do this well, that is very dangerous going into 2028 if people within the Democratic Party are fighting amongst themselves about how the process works.
Love to see it.
Isn't that so rich?
Accelerate.
That is so rich after we just came off a presidential election where the DNC said, F your vote, we're putting her in that spot. Never received a single delegate vote. Was the first one to drop out in the 2020 primaries, Democrat primaries.
Yeah.
And now they're talking about process and how that's going to disenfranchise Democrat voters. I think she nailed it with the first part. They don't have the money.
Yeah.
And, when we read Stolen Elections, one of the things I think was absolutely true in that book, one of the few things, was the money apparatus, and that you have to have the money to pay this machine. This machine does not run for free. People are not willing to risk catching a federal felony, sedition, treason, whatever, to fix an election for free.
Yeah.
And I'll land that there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what we're seeing, first of all, she's hilarious, right? Like, oh my gosh, they're arguing about the process. Like, why are Democrats not going to be in lockstep anymore? What are we going to do if everybody's not in lockstep? And, if you can't pay them off, you might actually have to debate the ideas.
Yep.
And we're seeing that in Democrat primaries around the country. And I'm here for it. I think like I've said for a while, and again, I'm not saying that the DSA are principled. Certainly not the kind of principles
More principled than the establishment, and I'm not a fan of the DSA.
Right. That's exactly it, is that it's this challenge to the established order, the institutional control that we haven't seen on the Democrat side. The Republican side, it's always been there, right? It was the Tea Party, and then it was the start of MAGA, and now this many factions that we have. And I really believe that the United States of America is many factions. It's not two parties. It's a whole bunch of different ideas, but we never get to have those ideological battles because the parties get in the way, and you're either a D or an R. And when we can debate in odd numbered years, right? We have lots of ideological debates in odd numbered years, but as soon as we get into an election year, then we have to fall in line and don't do anything that's going to make us lose the upcoming election. Don't challenge these things. That feels different this time around. There are more challengers. And what we're seeing is very much this debate between what kind of America on the Republican side, what kind of America do you want to be? I think they're having a similar clash of ideas on the Democrat side. It's just that both sides of that equation are retarded.
Do you remember? I think it was Steve Bannon debated. It was back in 2018 in Canada. I think it was David Frum.
I remember the name.
Okay, so he debates him, and there was a populist versus more establishment mindset in terms of politics and what populism means and everything. And they polled the audience. This was in Canada, so take it with a grain of salt, but they polled the audience before the debate, and wildly they did not believe populism was a good thing, right? By the end of the debate with Bannon, I think it was some 70-75%, a super majority believed that their opinions had been changed on populism. And I think there's populism on both sides that's now being thrust into the line, into the spotlight from both parties. And again, whether or not it's organic on the opposition side, I don't want to say Democrat or Republican, but whether it's organic on the opposition side is yet to be seen. But yesterday we covered, or 2 days ago we covered, these litmuses being put out by The Hill. AOC's considering running for president. Elizabeth Warren's considering running for president. And they're putting out these populist ideas because they're trying to recreate the momentum that President Trump was able to garner on the so-called right. And they're trying to recreate that desperately in their side. Unfortunately, they're not realizing, I don't think it's going to come from somebody that's already into that system. So look beyond AOC, look beyond Elizabeth Warren. I don't know where they go from there because I don't have my finger on the pulse of the Democrats that much.
Oh, I really hope that happens, though. Give me an Elizabeth Warren AOC ticket, a Kamala Harris AOC ticket. Get AOC in there. Let's put, this is, again, if we can get rid of the establishment stranglehold on, when we get to the general, you always have establishment versus, it's Pam Anderson versus Jenna Griswold, right? You always have establishment versus establishment candidates for the most part. In the general, if we can eliminate that dynamic and we're actually battling on ideas, and AOC is out there sharing her ideas of how America should be, and her challenger, her opposition is stating their ideas, which would be more right-leaning ideas on how America should be. The result of that is going to be pronounced, but we never actually get there. It's the ideas that most people are talking about at the bars and around the water cooler at work. Those ideas are considered by the establishment to be fringe. They're called fringe ideas by the establishment, but they are the ideas that the people are grappling with. And if we put those ideas and that clash of ideas between the DSA and an America First, if we put those on display and allow the people to choose what kind of America we're going to be, America First wins all day long by a wide margin, in my opinion.
Yep. This was Spoetzel put it in the chat. This was the debate.
And we're going to ask you to vote on the resolution. Is populism the future?
That's what
liberal values push back. If you are in favor of the motion, I want you to press A on your clicker. That's A or the number 1. Okay. If you are opposed to the motion, there's no do-overs here. Okay. You're going to press B or number 2. You can't vote in the midterm elections, but you can vote right now. So we're going to let those results tabulate a bit. We're going to give people a few minutes.
In the midterm elections.
And remind the online audience that they can go to our website, www.monkdebates.com/vote. We've got a question live there right now that lets you vote on the resolution and see how your fellow online watchers are going to gauge opinion at the start of this debate. Okay, let's close that question. We've all had a chance to vote, and let's see the results. What is this audience thinking as it goes into tonight's debate? How is public opinion divided in this room? Can we see those results up on the screen? There you have it. 28% of you agree, 72% of you disagree. An interesting start. Now,
all right, let's see if we can go back to the final numbers. I don't know if they actually put the final numbers out here.
At the beginning of tonight's debate, if we can get those,
it was 28-72
to see
72 believe populism is
I think it was
not liberal.
28% in favor of the motion, 72% opposed, but we'll get those numbers up in a moment. And then we had a fairly large group of you in this hall that said that you could change your mind. I think slightly over 50% of people thought they could change their mind. So let's close the second vote on the resolution now. We're going to give it a few moments to that to tabulate, and then we're going to find out a really important live vote at this moment. How has opinion shifted in this hall? Can we see those results now? I'm sure somebody is having. There we are. 57% yes. 43% no.
So, I mean, that's a case there. And this goes back to your idea about having these debates, right? It doesn't have to just be between politicians. It doesn't just have to be in an election year, but having these discussions in a public forum. I think that's why GART is such a fantastic thing, because it does often turn into debate like this. But
on stage and off.
It can change opinions. This can change opinions.
Hearts and minds.
Yes, 100%.
And that's how you change the world. One conversation at a time, you change the hearts and minds. You appeal to logic, you appeal to reason, and you change hearts and minds. It's why debate is important. It's why conversation is important.
But so here's the thing, and this is why, this is one of the reasons, like I fully engage and support Chris and his, I'm staying off of social media, because social media creates the echo chambers. You're either this way or that way. Too many people will listen to the show and I'll say one thing that they don't like. And they're like, oh, CannCon's lost his way. CannCon's gone crazy. He supported Massey. Yeah. I also support Donald Trump with every single shred of my, I believe the goal here.
But if you have to choose between the two of them,
I'm going Trump, but I don't have to choose between them. That's a stupid catch-22. If you gun to the head, pick a side, Brian. I would probably take Massey just because there's longevity in that movement right there.
OMG. Heard it here first, everybody.
No. It's a stupid conundrum because it could never happen. Trump has 2 more years, barring a third term, and then it's up to us. It's up to us. Is
that true that they filed yes. thing? It is that his first term was undermined, and so wow, let's go. It's also entertaining. It's super fake, all of it, but it's very entertaining.
Wow.
Movie.
Sammy the Squirrel says even CannCon can be wrong. I would love to debate you on Massey, Sammy. You won't. You wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I read you his bills. I read you the bills that he proposed. If I didn't tell you those were Thomas Massey bills, you would have said these are the best. This is the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, Sammy. That was Thomas Massey. The repealing the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, Thomas Massey. That is his.
Was that successful?
Right there? What's that?
Was it successful?
No, but to sit here and say that, you're going to judge the success of somebody based on how they're able to negotiate a corrupt and illegitimate body and get them to do their will, to hold themselves accountable, is like absurd. Even President Trump is not able to do that.
Who has introduced legislation to declare the Congress corrupt and illegitimate? Because I will get behind them.
Me too. Me too. I'm there 100%. Okay. Brian has a coner. I don't know what a coner is. So there was another half to that little segment, and
tell us, because I have to know what it is.
A document that lacks a conclusion about what went wrong is a great metaphor for how things are going right now. Democratic voters are dissatisfied with the Democratic Party. So this autopsy is not necessarily a surprise. It's sort of more of the same of the way Democratic voters perceive the party. What I will say, though, is there were well-crafted autopsies that came after Democrats lost in 2004, after Republicans lost in 2012. And then the parties nominated people that were definitely not contemplated by those autopsies. The 2012 autopsy saying that Republicans needed to do immigration reform and really try to win over Latino voters. And then they nominated President Trump. Obviously, in 2008, President Obama kind of came out of nowhere as well. So at this point in the cycle, neither of them had burst onto the scene in a way where people would have thought, oh, well, that is the solution to this party's problem.
Sam, before we go, less than a minute left.
So that tells me right there that these audits are completely fake and gay, because President Trump got his notoriety. He got his momentum because he said the things that the populist American, a broad spectrum of Americans, were feeling. And that was not about reforming immigration. That was about stopping immigration. That was about stopping illegal immigration. Okay. President Trump, his percentage of vote with the Hispanic community has exponentially grown since 2016. From 2016 to 2020 to 2024, it is growing consistently. Same with the black voters, same with all minority voters. In fact, I think in 2020, there was like a poll that President Trump had the highest turnout amongst minority voters than any Republican president going all the way back to like the 50s.
Yeah.
Insane. So yeah, that I just wanted to play that because that was absolutely just absurdly retarded logic.
Yeah. So in 2020, candidate Joe Biden won Hispanic voters by 25%, allegedly. In 2024, Harris won by just 3 points. So Trump is gaining share. Trump doubled his support with black voters in 2020. It was 8%. In 2024, it was 15%. So her position there is retarded. right? It's like she's saying, you know, they needed to nominate somebody that would gain share with black and brown voters, and they nominated Donald Trump, who gained share with black and brown voters in ways the Republicans haven't been able to accomplish ever, you know, since the party switched. Sorry, had to throw a party switch in there. But that's the thing, is that their analysis is off because they're failing to see the moment that is happening in our nation, the awakening of the American mind, the reclaiming of American rights, and the positions of the people as it pertains to governance and decision rights over their lives is shifting. NPR cannot keep up with that. But of course, NPR is beholden to the status quo of the system. They're going to protect the system, and their analysis is going to be in the context of the system.
When you look, and this is still living in the realm of our elections are fake and gay, which, you know, we live in that realm, period. But, you know, to sit there and say neither Democrats nor Republicans get these autopsies right. Somebody got it right in 2016. Now, I don't know if it was the Republican establishment that got it right and put Donald Trump out there, because they did everything they possibly could to stop Donald Trump. But whoever saw that autopsy report and said, let's get Donald Trump in there, whether it's Donald Trump himself, whether there's other people that got together and said, hey, Donald, let's do this. Who knows? Wink, wink. But whoever did that realized what that report was actually saying. And they have been playing off of that for the last 10, 12 years. And this goes back to the 2018 Bannon clip right there at the Munk debate.
Munk debate, yeah.
The Munk debate. He got it. The point is that populism is on the rise throughout the globe, but especially here in America. And Donald Trump tapped into that. Donald Trump is, you know, leading that populist movement. And I think we're going to see a hell of a lot more of this coming down. And this is finally, to their point on NPR right there, the Democrats are finally starting to understand that they have to try and tap into that. They did with Bernie Sanders, and what they do, they smacked him down. And Bernie Sanders is a populist. Yeah, they smacked him down twice. They stole it from him twice. Now, was he too old? Is he a little bit too crazy? I don't know. But rolling AOC out there is not going to work. She is a populist, but she is not. She's an actor. She's a character. She was created in an audition. Well, she was literally created in an audition. She's not, you know.
Yeah, but it'll be so entertaining. And I think it's such a misstep by the establishment to put such hard opposition to the idea of populism, because for the masses, the idea of so for years we've been compared to Hitler and Nazis, right? And that's what's happening in this moment. You have to reject populism. My old representative here, Ken Buck, took that position pretty staunchly and then got absolutely annihilated. Knew he was going to lose, ended up resigning before his term was up. But the masses understand populism to be the will of the people, and the idea that the people can actually have their decision rights back. The people can decide what we're going to do in our communities and in our counties and in our states and in our nation. And the opposition to that is the people who have controlled all of the institutions and brought us to the point of needing a great reset. Like, we have to, sorry guys, we broke the world. We have to reset everything, but we're going to do it in a way that lets us keep power. And the people are like, how about no? How about you broke the world? Sit down. Right. And that's in the mind of the American people, that's where the kind of populism argument is going. And the more they call us Nazis, the more people become populists.
Let's jump into this clip here. California gubernatorial candidate Javier Becerra. This will lead into the next story here.
If you're working hard, I want you to have health care. I guess Steve Hilton doesn't care if they work really hard. He looks at their status, and that's about it.
Well, he says that they broke the law. He says that he immigrated here legally, and that spending money to give somebody health care is incentivizing bad behavior.
He doesn't seem to mind that the price of food is a little lower because these are the folks who are picking the crops. He doesn't seem to mind that the places that you can buy to live in are places that these folks built. He doesn't seem to mind that they're the folks that are taking care of probably one of his relatives, probably taking care of his yards. He seems to mind that they don't have documents, but he doesn't seem to mind that they do so much of the work in California.
This is foreshadowing tomorrow's episode of Badlands Book Club. We're reading The Creature from Jekyll Island, and in the episode tomorrow, we explore the rise of daddy government. And I want you to have health care. I want you to have happiness and puppies and rainbows. And so give me all your rights. Give me all your decision rights over your life, and I'll give you puppies and rainbows and health care.
That is the party of slavery right there.
Yeah.
The party that
and Jim Crow
right there with a complete rebrand. And now we're going to justify indentured servitude. We're going to justify.
Who's going to pick the crops, Brian?
We're going to justify human trafficking and everything else, human trafficking for corporations and for the greater good of society by bringing in a subclass of people from a foreign country and having them do our yard work. And that we're going to glorify that by saying that you would really hate life if we didn't have these immigrants to cut your grass. Yep. Let me know how that works out for you, Javier Becerra. And we're the racist here, right? We're the racist. By the way, I cut my own grass.
I have sons for that.
Also, I worked for a landscaping company for like 10 years when I was in high school and growing up. So
yeah, it's a boy's job.
So it definitely is. Well, Christy works in nursery now. I mean, she's not out there doing the physical labor and all that.
Yeah, but mowing the lawn is a boy's job. Just like taking out the trash is a boy's job.
Yeah. Just the news. California gubernatorial hopeful Becerra has deep ties to migrant NGOs and the Mexican government. I thought this story was very interesting, given all the stuff that's going on with Sinaloa right now, with Scheinbaum down in Mexico, with the feds going after all of these cartel rings and everything. And I wonder if we're going to see some sort of a connection between these cartels and the NGOs actually exposed. We all believe that there is a connection, but if we're going to see one actually exposed. So just the news. Gubernatorial candidate and former U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra's relationship with the Mexican government doesn't run through one nonprofit, it runs through many. Investigative reporting from the Government Accountability Institute tracks Becerra's long-standing documented relationship with several of the most politically powerful migrant nonprofits in the country, including those with deep operational ties to the Mexican government. Unidos US, formerly the National Council of La Raza, has been a Becerra ally for decades. The group was created as a militant liberation movement in the 1960s. I'm sure they had like a big fist icon, with the black flag and everything behind it.
I've really upset some women in the chat by saying mowing the lawn is a boy's job. # not all women. Sorry.
That's okay. They'll probably leave and they'll be like, Ashe believes that women can't cut grass. And so I'm done. She's so stupid.
No, we absolutely can. And we could probably do it better than the men. But I'm sorry. I had 3 sons to do exactly that kind of work.
It would take you 10 times as long because you guys would be like, the grass isn't perfectly even.
No, mine would be the opposite. My rows would not be all aligned. And I'm like, it's fine. And then I would trigger all the OCD people that drove by my yard would be triggered.
And then your husband walks out and he's like putting his head down.
You're never cutting the grass again. No, I don't think I've ever done it. Like, I don't think I've ever, because when I was growing up, it was my brother's chore, and then as a married woman with sons, it's not a thing I do.
By 2024, Mexican government officials were explicitly citing the need to engage Unidos US to mobilize, quote, citizen participation and collective action, end quote, inside of the United States. Becerra's daughter, Clarissa, interned at Unidos US in 2012. When Becerra was nominated to lead HHS, Unidos US supported his nomination and shepherded him in throughout his Senate confirmation process. Unidos US works on civic engagement, political advocacy, and get out the vote efforts. But wait a second, why would an NGO dealing with illegal immigrants have a get out the vote arm?
That's a very interesting question, Brian. It must be for totally legitimate purposes.
Yeah, they're trying to get all the real immigrants who, by the way, real like citizens.
We need to pre-register for them for when they get their citizenship.
Well, most of the people, once they become citizens the legal and justified way, they don't like the illegal immigration. They are staunchly against it. Come down here to Miami and go start talking to some people that spent 10 years going through the immigration process and be like, hey, what do you feel about these freeloaders coming over here and getting all this health care and all these benefits? And they're illegal. And they're like, F those people. They are staunch conservatives down here.
You can't say illegal. You have to say undocumented, or you're a bigot. Also, if you like that all shows are Why We Vote Now, hit the like button and drop a comment in the chat. Dropping a comment in the chat, if you're watching and you don't usually chat, just say hi or drop a period, or you can tell us your life story. But the unique chatters metric helps us. So drop a quick comment and make sure you hit the like button.
My favorite is calling me a loser while you're literally spending your time watching me. That was my favorite one. Somebody did that a little while ago. Hat tip to you, brother. Good to see you. Unidos US works on civic engagement, political advocacy, and get out the vote efforts, frequently intersects with Mexico's US agenda, as seen in partnership with groups like Mi Familia Vota and Unidos' own Civics for All program. There's your Mi Familia Vota.
Shout out to Mi Familia Vota, who sued me and lost.
I thought of you when I was highlighting that.
Love it.
Like, oh, Ash is going to love this part.
Should put that one in a different color.
Churla, the group Churla, Bashara describes as part of his family and has been a close ally of Bashara since 2015, vowing to, quote, work hard to get him elected because of his support for immigrants. In addition to providing services for migrants, Churla mobilizes anti-ICE rallies and deploys legal observers at ICE operations. They also conduct voter outreach initiatives. What are the fucking odds that two of these NGOs associated with Javier Bashara both do get out the vote initiatives? I thought that illegals don't vote in our elections.
Get out the vote initiatives are padding the voter rolls, especially if they aren't checking eligibility before they register people to vote. And in my opinion, they cannot check eligibility when registering people to vote because they will be immediately hit with voter suppression if you ask people about citizenship. And that is why Scott Pressler is basically Michelle Obama.
Hold that thought for 2 seconds. During the 2024 election, Churla placed a mobile voting center in a Los Angeles migrant hub, notably right near the Mexican consulate. All the while, they've collected millions in taxpayer money. Churla's government grant revenues was nearly $34 million in 2022. Do you know why the illegals voting crisis, and again, I don't think it's the illegals themselves necessarily that are voting. I think they're just, fuel in the tank that somebody else can expend when necessary. Even if you go to these voting, like these NGOs that deal with illegal migrants should not have anything to do with voting, get out the vote initiatives and voter outreach and all those things. In California, they will give illegals driver's licenses. You can get a driver's license in California. I live in South Florida. We have tons of illegals down here. And that's literally what they do. They go to California. It's kind of Mexico. They go to California. They get a driver's license legally. And then they come over here to Florida and they have a driver's license. Completely illegal. Not green card, no nothing. Completely illegal. But they have a California driver's license, and so they go under the radar here. The same thing can happen with voting. You go to register to vote. Do you have a driver's license? Yes, I do. Here's your driver's license. Okay, you must be eligible to vote. Let me register you. Is there any checks and balances here for immigration? Nope. It's all a scam. And then they'll come around and they'll gaslight you, Ash, like they have been for the last 10 years. Illegals voting is extremely rare. There's only been 30 cases of it in the last 5 years.
It's widely debunked.
Yeah, widely debunked. Well,
there's some confusion in the chat about what I mean when I say Scott Pressler is basically Michelle Obama. So Michelle Obama has this NGO, this umbrella NGO called When We All Vote, and under it are all of these get out the vote entities. So she's like, the final boss of voter get out the vote efforts on the left. I was not comparing penis sizes, just to assuage the confusion.
Did you see the what is that we played on Tuesday of Michelle Obama?
No.
Oh my goodness. Now you're going to make me rehash that.
Well, yeah, because it sounds delightful.
Now you're going to make me rehash that.
Yeah, we have
actually, you know what?
Driver's licenses here too.
Let's take 2 seconds and hit our sponsor. Soft disclosure coming up here.
In a quiet town where beards grow wild and lips dare to crack without permission, one woman has suffered.
Hi, I'm Margie, and I'm Jadriet's mother.
But the world would come to know her by another name, Madame Margie, the moistureless.
Jay came home with a lip balm. It's called Soft Disclosure.
With one miraculous application, her power awakened.
Within one day, my lips were healed. It was miraculous.
But salvation came at a cost. For in the shadowed lands known only as Badlands,
You boys at Badlands are so handsome.
she saw potential,
You're covering up your beautiful faces.
and she made her demand,
Shave them all off,
or face the consequences. Beard oil will not save you now.
and you'll look so much better.
This summer, moisturize wisely and guard your beard, because Madame Margie, the moistureless, is always watching.
Go ahead.
What?
Giving you the floor. I'm giving you the floor.
I thought you were looking up something to rehash.
I am, but you're supposed to do your soft
Oh,
disclosure.
well, yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. In the intro to this show, you can see Ghost when he's talking about what he does to cats, which is a whole other issue that we should be concerned about. But he's got kind of, he's got the beard going, and we were super excited about that. Everybody's growing beards. It was the peak of the Badlands beard. And then Margie came on the scene and started convincing everybody to shave their beards. And so she became a villain, which is sad because we love Margie and she's adorable and her little giggle is adorable and all of the things. But so listen to her about getting the lip balm and the lotion and all of the things. Don't listen to her about shaving your beard. Get some beard oil, get a beard brush, and grow that baby out. Softdisclosure.com, promo code Badlands. You will not regret it.
All right, I can't find it because it was yesterday on the show, and it was the Michelle Obama dancing around with the dog, looking at the thing in the pants swinging around, and it had the "What is that?" gunfire from the White House. The woman going, "What is that?" and looking at it, and it was pretty funny. All right, let's move on. Be a totally.
What happened with that whole thing? It went away kind of quick, huh?
The shooting at the White House?
Yeah.
The guy was mentally unstable. I guess Secret Service engaged him. I don't know if they killed him or injured him or what.
But didn't he think he was Black Jesus?
Yes, at one point he's.
How we not have more conversations about that?
I don't know. Axios, President Trump appoints Pam Bondi to White House AI panel. This is interesting, but it's not the most interesting part of this story. It says Bondi will be on the president. Way to steal my thunder. I'm going to mute you from now on. I'm going to have an automatic button.
I have powers.
Bondi will be on the Presidential Council of Advisors of Science and Technology. The panel is chaired by former White House AI advisor David Sachs and White House science advisor Michael Kratsios. It includes more than a dozen tech executives, including NVIDIA co-founder Jensen Huang, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison. Bondi will be charged with facilitating coordination between the government and the tech titans on the panel. Bondi will also serve in a newly established advisory role on national infrastructure. And then this is the most interesting part. Bondi was diagnosed with thyroid cancer shortly after departing the Justice Department.
So Jordan made an interesting point in our, and it's, I think hopium at this point, but I like it. In our Badlands chat that, Susie Wiles diagnosed with breast cancer, Tulsi Gabbard's husband, rare form of bone cancer, Pam Bondi, rare form of thyroid cancer. Wouldn't it be cool if they announced, if the disclosure of cancer cures came through those vehicles? I don't know if that's going to happen, but I like the storytelling of it.
Well,
and I do think that they have cures for cancer. I think that the cancer industry and lobby is so powerful, and this is it's one of the most sinister things that I believe about our government, but that they keep cancer, they keep the treatment protocols in place, but suppress the cures, because if you cure cancer, that would be an economic disaster for the health industries.
Yes, it would. Also, that's now 3 top officials in the Trump administration. 2 of them leave after cancer or while. Susie Wiles is still in the chief of staff. They said the prognosis on her is good because they caught it early enough. But I thought that was really, really interesting. And who was it when we were talking about Tulsi Gabbard? I think it might have been Alpha on Thursday when she resigned, or maybe it was Chris Paul, but saying like you hate to go all conspiratorial, but when Trump says he's going to be fine, he's going to come out of it, talking about Abraham, Tulsi Gabbard's husband, you pray that he's going to be fine, but Trump seems to be doubling down on that, and that's where Jordan's kind of assessment comes from on that post. Yeah, it's really interesting. Weaponized cancer. I've adapted. Yep, weaponized cancer. Maybe. I'm not saying definitively, but
well,
yeah.
it is a economic engine of the health industries, the cancer industry, and that's across, from research and diagnostics to preventatives to treatments, and all of the things. It is it employs significant numbers of medical professionals, and if you cure it, that's going to have an economic impact, a massive economic impact. And it's really difficult to think about that. You want to believe, well, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't suppress cures to deadly diseases to keep the industry fighting the deadly diseases. Well, I mean,
have you seen our government?
Anybody really willing to make that kind of statement about what the government will and will not do? Because they're pretty sinister.
The AIDS epidemic was created. The COVID epidemic was created. What's that?
Take your AZT. That was the drug that was to treat HIV before it became full-blown AIDS, and it ended up making people sicker, as I understand it.
The government would never do something like that. Hashtag Tuskegee experiments, hashtag like just going down the line.
Or that time that they did that chemical weapons test in St. Louis in the projects, because the projects in St. Louis were the community in our society that was most similar to Moscow. And so they wanted to see how their chemical weapons would relate in Moscow, like how would it work. And you have the stories of these kids. Some of these people are still alive. A lot of them are dead, but they had to run through clouds of toxins on their way home from school. And all those people developed a bunch of cancers. And the CIA and the government said, well, there wasn't any poison in it. And it's like, well, hang on a second. You were testing weapons for Moscow. You're telling me the weapons don't have any impact? It's very, our government is very despicable. The nuclear tests is another one. The nuclear tests that were done during and after the Manhattan Project, and the radiation waves that went to, and again, people have tons of cancers, have lots of health impacts from that, and the government's just like, oh, far bad, if they even go that far.
Yeah. Look at Camp Lejeune, the water problem in Camp Lejeune, experiments on the military, the
fluoride,
fluoride. Yeah. It expands beyond that, I think, once you get to a certain level where we talked about the public-private partnership earlier in the show, where you have NGOs, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, going over to Africa and dosing all these kids with vaccines and all sorts of other things. And, but there's always these Ebola outbreaks, but those are totally organic. And then we need the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or I think it's just the Bill Gates Foundation now. I think they took Melinda out of it.
She'd be smart to remove her name. If we do a really good job with vaccines, Brian, we can get the population down.
Yeah, we can get it down to 0, or we could get the what was it, the P?
And a lot of that, in my opinion, is not them killing people. Some of it may be, but it's sterilizing, right? And that goes back to Margaret Sanger and the early eugenics movement in America of let's find the undesirables and sterilize them so they can't procreate.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump into
I understand the temptation. But I think that is a grave evil.
Let's jump into this clip real quick. JD Vance doubling down on the fraud that they're uncovering. But I just want to play the part where he talks about these attorney generals. He had a bunch of states attorneys generals for a roundtable yesterday, and Democrats actually showed up. I was surprised.
Very gratified and proud of the fact that we have 15 different state AG offices represented here today who are focused on helping us in combating fraud all over our government. And let me be very brief here about what we're trying to do here. So,
okay. So I think it was
here tomorrow.
What's that?
JD Vance, who's speaking here in Denver tomorrow.
Oh, is that why Usha's?
Yeah, I think it has to do with so there's the Air Force Academy graduation. The Air Force Academy is in Colorado Springs, though, and I heard that he was speaking in Denver. So I think they might be two different events.
Well, it was, I think, Connecticut and Oregon state attorney generals were at that hearing there. So good on them. Good on them. I mean, fraud is the one thing, especially with widespread fraud like this. That is the one thing that should be absolutely nonpartisan. Like there should be no partisanship. It doesn't matter if they're only targeting right now Somali fraud, right? Or Armenian fraud or Romanian fraud. Whatever the case might be, fraud is fraud, period.
Yeah.
And weaponize, mobilize your state's attorneys general to look at it for everybody. If they say, well, you're only looking at Somali fraud, why aren't you looking at white people fraud? Fuck yes. Let's do it. White people fraud, black people fraud,
all the white people fraud,
Hispanic people fraud, all of the fraud. Yes, let's do it. Okay.
Yes, fraud has no race.
Iran, just a little interesting tidbit here. Iran state TV says draft U.S. framework would lift the blockade. Iranian state TV said Tehran obtained the draft of an initial unofficial framework for a memorandum of understanding with the United States that would reopen commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and end the U.S. naval blockade. Under the reported framework, the U.S. would withdraw military forces from Iran's vicinity and lift the blockade, while Iran would restore the number of commercial transit ships through the strait to pre-war levels within 1 month. Could be just in time for the July 4th and 240 gas. I'm staying on that horse.
240 gas.
Staying on that horse, 240 gas. I'm staying on it.
I'm with you. I'm with you on the 240 gas rug.
Let's go. Management and routing of ships traffic through the strait would be handled by Iran in cooperation with Oman. If a final deal is reached within 60 days, the arrangement would be approved as a binding UN Security Council resolution. Let's go. Let's jump into some Canadian news, and I'm probably going to run out of time.
I love this story so much.
The Alberta one?
We were talking about Canadian independence.
Yeah, Alberta independence.
Well, okay. Okay. Just do a story.
Okay, well, it's going to segue into the next story, which we're not going to have time for. So I'm probably going to do a dig on, I'll go over at surface level here, but I'm going to do a dig on my show this afternoon on this. So from the BBC, Mark Carney, Prime Minister, says Alberta referendum a dangerous bluff and likens it to Brexit. Carney has called the upcoming Alberta referendum on separation from Canada a dangerous bluff. Carney led the Bank of England during Brexit, said that 10 years on from the referendum in the UK was, quote, trying to undo what people didn't think they were voting for, but what they ended up having. Oh, he also cautioned against voting in favor of separation as a way to strengthen Alberta's negotiation position with Ottawa. Albertans, by the way, I love the whole time I'm reading this, Ash, all I can do is think of their hockey teams. And you have the Ottawa Senators and the Edmonton Oilers, like the Roughnecks versus the white collared elite.
False decorum bullshit. Yeah.
Yes. I love that comparison. Like I want to root for Connor McDavid so bad right now.
I want to call it Connexit, but since it's only Alberta, do we call it Albexit?
Albertexit. Albexit. Yeah. Albexit. Albertans will decide on October 19th whether they want to remain part of Canada or hold a binding vote on a separation at a later date. Supporters believe the oil-rich province has long been overlooked by decision makers in Ottawa and that federal environmental policies have hindered its ability to build oil and gas pipelines and develop its natural resources. A grassroots independence movement gathered more than 300,000 signatures this year for a petition, but a court quashed that petition after Indigenous First Nations in Alberta successfully argued that they were not properly consulted. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said that she will proceed with a referendum question on a separation regardless, pointing to a separate counterpetition advocating for Alberta to remain, signed by more than 400,000 people. Smith disagrees with the legal decision and believes that Albertans have a right to vote, to voice their opinion. I want to play this clip here. This guy does a video on this, and it's pretty freaking epic. And I love this video right here. Albertans, good luck. If we have any Edmontonians watching, here you go.
And your wife wants to leave you, and she's been telling you over and over all the grievances that she has and all the things where you are failing completely. What's the worst possible thing you can say to her? You're bluffing. And this is quite literally what our prime minister just said to the people of Alberta, keep in mind that the folks in Alberta achieved 2 times the required amount of votes in order to initiate the referendum. Now, Danielle Smith said, we are going to pose the question of whether we should move forward with the final question of should we just separate completely from Canada. So let's just call it, for simplicity's sake, the question before the question. It's happening. And instead of making things right with the folks of Alberta on how you're going to do better and how your government is going to do better, he says this. This is similar to Brexit. It's a dangerous bluff. But the people who wanted to leave the EU in the UK for Brexit, they weren't bluffing, were they? And see, you can only abuse someone for so long before they start fighting back. And I'll be honest with you, I can't say I blame my friends in Alberta. For example, if I were in charge and if I were Carney, I would start listening to what is aggravating them, what things have made them so mad and angered them to the point where they want to leave the country. This right here is a perfect example of a wrong that needs to be right. How is it possible that the maritime provinces, on average, have 55% more representation in federal elections than the folks in Alberta? The maritime provinces, they have nearly half as many people as Alberta, yet they have almost an identical amount of seats. And that's just scratching the surface. Crime, uncontrolled immigration that is crippling our healthcare, the vast amount of extraction of money with equalization payments that favor Quebec, whose citizens purposely get the lowest electricity in all of Canada, is one of many things that is angering the people of Alberta. Just remember this. If you ever get into an unfortunate scenario where your wife is telling you, I'm going to leave you, and here are all my reasons, don't call it a bluff. I'm telling you,
I'm still going to push for Canada to leave Britain.
Well, yeah, that needs to happen.
This is a step. This is step one to Canada leaving Britain. And the reason that that needs to be the end game on this thing is that the British Empire sitting on our northern border is the global regime sitting on our northern border. And it's like, Canadians are so nice. Yeah, but they're beholden to the crown, and the crown can eat a dick.
So Alberta, Edmonton, that whole province there, the thing that's really it's the oil capital of Canada, right? 90% of the energy in Canada comes from Alberta, comes from that region.
Economic engine.
And if if they leave, Carney is Carney calling this a bluff is insane, because if Alberta does do this, they have all of the cards. They have all of the oil. They have all of the positioning. And Donald Trump, if they vote for that, Donald Trump will back the Albertans, because he's creating with Venezuela, with our own U.S. oil. And then eventually, if Alberta decides to fracture, watch, Trump's going to swoop in and be like, Alberta, we'll make you a deal. We'll make you an offer. I know he already did that early on. He was, trying to negotiate kind of subtly with them. But man, if Alberta leaves, we will welcome you gladly into the United States.
Yeah, speak for yourself. So listen, I talk a lot of shit about Canada.
Well, then we can root for the Edmonton Oilers to win a Stanley Cup, because they won't be Canadian anymore.
Okay. Now we're abandoning our hockey teams. Just calm down, Brian. You are way too excited about Canada right now. All right.
As long as the Hurricanes beat Canadians.
It is part one. It is the global regime on our northern border. I think there's an argument to be made that Canada is our greatest national security threat because of that, because of where their allegiances and incentive structures are. Somebody in the chat mentioned China. They do have very close relationship with China that puts them, again, on our northern border and in control of key ports up in Canada. Excuse me. Two, the Canadian people, while lovely, most of them, nice, accommodating, very kind of calm demeanor, they value their European roots way too much for my comfort. They like being more akin to Europe than to Americans. I find that insulting. I find it domesticated. And I largely think it's gross. 3, the only way that they have ever gone to space is by hitching a ride with either us or the Russians. And yet they say they have a space program. There are other reasons as well. But for those 3 reasons, Canada is, I think they're our enemy. That being said, the trucker protest, beautiful thing, supported it, covered it, cheered for you guys. I believe in the people rising up and taking power away from their corrupted governments. And I believe in that all over the world. And if Canadians do that, and Alberta is leading the way, the truckers led the way on that, we've supported all of that uncritically and without the sarcasm, right? Because, the Canadians are a product of their culture and a product of the way that their government has existed for a period of time. I cannot imagine watching my elected leader bend the knee to King Charles and swear allegiance to him. I find that to be despicable and gross, but Canadians seem to love it. If they can cast those chains off, and if they make this step and then, additional steps towards tossing the crown out of our continent and off of our northern border, then I will be a Canadian maxi. Maybe not. I'll probably never be a Canadian maxi. Also, my mom's parents are French Canadian, so I'm allowed.
Well, you probably get more of the Western Canadians, and down here in Florida, we get all the Quebecans, and not a fan of them. Not a fan of them, guys.
The French ones, yeah.
Guys, our speed limits over here are in miles per hour. So when you see 45 miles per hour, that's 45 miles per hour, not 45 kilometers per hour, which would be like 15 miles an hour slower than everybody else on the road. Also, there's this little stick that comes out of your steering column. You can go up or down with it. Either way, you can go up or down, and it signifies a left turn or a right turn. Canadian drivers are the absolute worst. Everybody in Florida knows it. Wintertime is miserable driving. If you see a white license plate with blue on it, run away.
We're rooting for you, Canadians. We're rooting for you to stop being domesticated cucks.
Yes. Now, speaking of Canada, and we're going to run out of time.
Domesticated crown-loving cucks.
We're going to run out of time for this, but I'm going to be doing a live stream at some point, probably this afternoon on my channel, rumble.com/CannCon. But I saw this video a couple days ago, and I was like, well, this is odd. And then it popped up again this morning, and I was like, all right, let me dig into this a little bit. So this is the initial video that I saw.
Yeah. Okay.
And this guy's in Canada. He's being stopped by Canadian police. I think in Quebec. I think it's in Quebec. And they're trying to detain him. Quebec. They're trying to detain him for basically committing him for psychiatric evaluation.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is Dr. Emery. He's a resident psychiatrist,
Yeah.
Senior resident. He's on a rotation with the CAR 87. We're part of a program that includes Vancouver Coastal Health and the Vancouver Police. Okay? And what we do is we go to people when there's different reasons that come up. Every case is a little different, and we go to people to see them where they are, especially if there's been issues with trying to find them and talk to them. So in your case, I think you were certified under the Mental Health Act just, I don't know how long ago, but like maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Were you aware of that? Dr. Taylor saw you in a cafe. She didn't certify you. I think you filmed part of it. And then she spoke with your family, got some more information, and you're going to have to turn that off.
So just one sec.
Yeah.
What the officer just told me is that you and I can set up a meeting and we can chat then. So why don't we do that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not turning the camera off. I have a legal right to keep the camera on. If you don't want to make the appointment now, we can do it at another time. But that's what the officer just asked that we do. So why don't we do that?
So I'm going to certify you under the Mental Health Act. We're going to bring you to hospital, do testing on you, and you're going to talk to a psychiatrist in a controlled environment because we don't believe that you're going to attend an appointment.
I won't attend. I've never been given a chance to attend an appointment.
So he's certified.
I've never been given a chance to attend an appointment.
Okay.
What is going on? I was never given a psych eval or nothing. He just looked at me and said, "You're certified."
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know why, but it's up to the doctor. So if you.
But no, he didn't even give me an eval. He just looked at me and said, "I'm certified, man."
I get that.
Please consider what you're doing, and please think about the fact that I'm more than happy to come in for an appointment. I'm happy to go through and do everything properly. Okay, I've been completely compliant with everything.
Yes, you've been really good with me, Nicholas. But listen, that's his call, and unfortunately, can't go back on that.
He hasn't talked to me.
Get checked out by a doctor.
You're interacting with me at a very.
Okay, now let me again. This story is bonkers, and I went down a rabbit hole this morning. I spent way too much time going through this. I've been up since like 5:30. I couldn't.
It's the same shit that happens in England, by the way. This is the same shit that happens in England, and by the way, Canada is England.
So this guy, and I'll just play you this one clip right here. He's been speaking out against laws that are being passed in Canada that have stipulations in them that are very authoritarian. For example, this is directly from his Instagram. This is the stuff that he's been putting out. Bill C9, the end of democracy in Canada. This bill will very likely pass by the end of March. Bill C9 will allow the Canadian government to lay criminal charges on anyone for saying anything that they don't like. It will enable them to pass all the other authoritarian bills, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, well, that's very broad, right? So let's see exactly what Bill C9 is going to do. So I typed into the machine. Bill C9 is known as the Combating Hate Act. Okay, anytime you see something saying combating hate, automatically red flag should go up. The bill repeals the existing criminal code defense that protected individuals expressing opinions on religious subjects in good faith.
We need to liberate Canada.
In good faith, meaning, Ash, you and I could be having a discussion about any religion, and I'm like, yeah, but Ash, I really don't think that that's the truth about Christianity or Judaism or Islam or whatever the case might be. And we're genuinely just having a good conversation. They can come and arrest you because you're expressing opinions on religious subjects in good faith.
This is a hill to die on.
Yes.
This is we can bring a hand-selected doctor to decide that you are crazy, and then we can separate you from your rights, arrest you on the spot. And what are the odds that you're going to be able to effectively defend yourself when they've declared that wrong think makes you crazy? This is a hill to die on. And honestly, I think this is very dangerous next to us in this landmass that we share. I think that this creeping authoritarianism of the crown is our greatest national security threat, because the crown is globalism. A part of it, not all of it, but a part of globalism. And so I am now on board with liberating Canada. And I know I've been on board with liberating Canada for a long time, but now is the time.
So this guy has been going to a bunch of MPs' offices and handing out a pamphlet. You can read the pamphlet. Again, I'm going to cover this on my show this afternoon. I'm going to do a show on this. But this was the interaction that they talked about in that police video. This is the interaction right here.
I'd actually read pamphlets. I heard you're having like a meet and greet here today. That's why.
Yeah, where did you get a flyer?
Abbotsford was where I was told about. You were there like a couple days ago, I think.
Yeah.
Is that okay to sit? Sure. So I'm actually a nurse, work nearby at the hospital, but I figured I'd just come over because I'd seen the pamphlets, and I don't think I'm smart enough to understand them.
Right. You guys.
Okay, so the guy comes up to him and he says, hey, we heard that you're having a meet and greet here, because this guy organized a meet and greet to come and talk about his political speech, his free political speech, and talk to people about these amendments. And this guy comes up and he's like, well, I'm a nurse. I'm over at the hospital across the street. I heard about this event and I wanted to come over here and check this out. And I read your pamphlet. I'm not smart enough to know what your pamphlet is about. And then the guy literally says, okay, you can stop right there. you can fuck off. This is my right to do this. I have every right to be here. And that's the interaction.
Take this and get the fuck away from me.
It's kind of worrisome.
No, I already know what you're doing. Yeah. You guys can take whatever you're doing, your little act, and you guys can please leave.
So Nicholas,
I'm asking you politely.
I'm a physician.
Okay, so I'm going to
And
leave.
one of the things
Because
we
what
wanna
I'm
do
going to tell you is that what you're doing right now is illegal.
How is it illegal?
What is it? It's an ambush is what you're doing.
It's a mental health assessment, and we need to know what your...
Put their faces everywhere.
Yeah.
That woman should be ashamed of herself. First, do no harm is the principle of medicine. And she's going in to entrap and to remove him from his rights based on his ideology, based on his political speech and support and advocacy for change. You have the right as a human. We are endowed by our Creator with rights, and we are endowed with the right to advocate for the change we want to see in the world. And I think that that's a human principle, not just an American one. And yeah, liberate Canada.
All right, we have one rant real quick. Makes sense to me. Says, sorry, double speeding from beginning. Maybe Paxton won because there has been just enough accountability and ongoing investigations that the cheaters are scared to cheat. Could
Scott
be.
Bottom's position.
Could be. Also, Paxton was intimately involved in a lot of the election fraud investigations, so perhaps they wanted to stay away from
Great point.
doing it to him because he knows where to look. And if you guys didn't see last night's Why We Vote, I would go back and check it out. We had Clay Parikh and Colonel Smith join us.
Such a great show.
It
Yeah,
was a good show.
really good discussion. So everybody
Not-
should check that out.
Not really directly involved with voting machines, but broadly, yes. And
We talked about voting machines.
but I mean, it was the CISA thing is not exclusive to voting machines.
Oh, sure. No, that's just an infrastructure. That's a lot of these vulnerabilities are not specific to voting machines. They're taken seriously in every industry except voting machines. And that's the point, is that with the known vulnerabilities are ignored when it comes to elections, because elections are just so important that they can't be compromised. And if they are, don't tell anyone, because that would undermine public trust in the elections. And we can't do that, even if they are completely untrustworthy.
Also, Harold_Patriot left us a subscription, which went to Steve Craw. So thank you guys, or Steve Cray. Thank you guys all so much. Again, I'll be doing a live stream this afternoon on this guy right here. I've done a lot of digging on him, and I've got a lot of stuff I'm going to put more together. I texted our Canadian friend Viva Fry this morning. I was like, do you know anything about this guy? And he's like, too funny, dude. I'm going to be doing a show on him this afternoon. And I was like, me too. I might actually end up on his show. I don't know yet.
Yeah, and everybody pray for Matt Arrett, because if there's anybody that they would want to do that to, it's our buddy Matt. And luckily, I think he's pretty savvy in how he navigates his relationship with his government. But keep him in your prayers.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all later.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.